It was a quiet night in the deep reaches of space, where the stars sparkled brightly like scattered diamonds. The Zarathians, an advanced alien race, were on their way to Earth. After observing humanity for centuries, they had decided it was finally time to make contact. The Zarathians had been watching Earth for years, fascinated by the rapid progress of human civilization. They saw potential in humanity intelligence, resilience, and ambition, and believed that Earth could become an important member of the galactic community. The alien diplomats, led by their commander Aerith, were aboard a massive, sleek spacecraft. This ship was unlike anything humans had ever seen, its surface shimmering with energy, and its design more beautiful and efficient than any technology Earth had developed. Aerith stood at the ship's control center, staring out into the void of space. His thoughts were calm, focused on the mission ahead. He had seen many worlds and met many species, but something about Earth felt different. It wasn't just the planet itself, it was the humans. Their potential, their drive, and their hunger for exploration intrigued him. That as the Zarathian ship approached Earth's orbit, a strange sense of anticipation filled the air. The peaceful mission was only a few moments away from reaching its destination, but there was a tension among the diplomats that couldn't be ignored. They had never made contact with a species as young and unpredictable as humans. The Zarathians were known for their peaceful nature and diplomacy, but even they couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before them, and the alien ship's sensors began to scan Earth. At first, everything seemed normal. The planet's blue oceans and green continents were visible, and the advanced cities glittered faintly in the night. Aerith looked at the data, nodding in approval. There were signs of civilization, yes, but there was something odd about the signals. They weren't clear. There were gaps, interruptions. It was as if the planet was hiding something, but he dismissed his concern. The Zarathians were peacekeepers, and their mission was not to pry but to establish goodwill. "Prepare for landing," Aerith said, his voice calm and steady. The ship's engines hummed softly as they adjusted their approach. Below, Earth's atmosphere was waiting to greet them with open arms, or so they thought. As the ship descended, a brilliant flash of light filled the sky. The Zarathians watched in shock as a massive ship appeared from the edge of their vision. It was enormous, its shape unlike anything they had ever encountered. It looked like a massive, shadowy figure, far larger than any vessel they had in their fleet. The ship wasn't just floating, it was moving fast, and its trajectory seemed to suggest it was heading directly toward Earth. Aerith's heart skipped a beat. Something wasn't right. This was no friendly ship. This was a warship. The alien diplomat scrambled to gather information. What was that ship? Where had it come from? They didn't recognize it at all. The human ships they had studied were far smaller, primitive by their standards, and certainly not capable of posing any serious threat. But this was different. It was far too advanced, and its intentions were unclear. Aerith felt his mind race as his crew worked to get more data. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. They had traveled far and wide, establishing peace on countless worlds, and now Earth was about to become their newest ally, their newest enemy. The Zarathian diplomats were prepared for peace, but they were not unprepared for a fight. They had technology far superior to anything humanity could dream of, but they preferred to solve problems with words, not weapons. The ship was now close enough that its size became overwhelming. It wasn't just big, it was colossal. Its massive, dark hull was like a black mountain in the sky. Lights along its edges flickered, casting eerie glows that reflected on the Zarathian ship. Aerith's hand clenched around the control panel. This was no ordinary visit. The arrival of this massive vessel had changed everything. The Zarathians weren't just meeting humans, they were about to face a test of survival. "Prepare to communicate," Aerith ordered. "We need to understand what's going on here. Something is off." The diplomats were tense, each one sensing the same thing. The Titan-class ship wasn't a peaceful vessel. The signals it sent out were unlike any they had seen before. They were full of static, disrupted, almost as if Earth was trying to hide its true nature. The mysterious ship's approach grew closer. Aerith could hear the quiet hum of their own engines as they prepared to land. The Zarathians had made their decision. They would approach with caution, but they would still offer peace. It was their way. But as the Titan-class ship's enormous shadow stretched over them, a strange sense of fear crept into the diplomats' hearts. It wasn't the kind of fear they had ever known before. It wasn't the fear of an enemy they couldn't defeat. It was the fear of the unknown. What had they gotten themselves into? What did this new ship, this new human force, mean for the future of their peaceful mission? And just when they thought things couldn't get worse, the Zarathian ship's communications console began to beep. A message from Earth came through, loud and clear, but it wasn't what they expected. Stay away from Earth's orbit. Earth's peace will come at a price. The words echoed through the control room, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. What did that mean? Was Earth warning them, or was this a threat? Whatever it was, it sent a chill down their spines. The Zarathians had hoped for an easy, peaceful introduction, but now, it seemed Earth was preparing for something far different. Aerith stared at the screen, his mind racing. What did Earth want? What kind of message were they sending? The stakes had just been raised, and the Zarathians were about to face a challenge unlike any other. As the huge Titan-class ship loomed closer, the diplomats braced themselves for the unknown. The tension in the air was almost unbearable as the Zarathian ship descended, its sleek form cutting through the atmosphere of Earth. The diplomats on board could feel their hearts pounding in their chests, but they maintained their composure, knowing their mission was crucial. They had come to offer peace, to extend the hand of friendship to a young and promising species. But now, as they approached their destination, everything felt wrong. The message from Earth echoed in their minds. Stay away from Earth's orbit. Earth's peace will come at a price. The words were unsettling, filled with an underlying threat that the Zarathians could not ignore. They had expected warmth, a celebration of new relations, a hopeful beginning. Instead, they were met with a cryptic warning, a challenge to their very presence. That as the Titan-class ship loomed ever closer, it became impossible to ignore its overwhelming size. It was a behemoth, casting a long dark shadow across the city below. The diplomats had seen large ships before, massive vessels of war, trade, and exploration, but this ship was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Its design was harsh and imposing, designed for sheer power rather than elegance or diplomacy. The Zarathians had studied Earth's technology from afar, but this ship defied their expectations. The humans had built something truly remarkable, something far beyond their time. The Zarathians had been preparing for a peaceful exchange, not a confrontation. Their ship, though advanced, was a symbol of elegance and refinement. Its technology was peaceful in nature, designed to foster relationships and cultivate trust. It was not equipped for battle, but the alien diplomats did not feel entirely helpless. The Zarathians were resourceful and highly intelligent. If necessary, they could adapt and defend themselves, but they hoped it wouldn't come to that. Aerith, the lead diplomat, stood at the command center, his eyes fixed on the massive Titan-class ship that had taken shape on the horizon. His mind raced. What did this ship represent? Was it a symbol of human strength or a warning of something far darker lurking beneath the surface? What kind of species had they come to meet? The Zarathians had seen peaceful species evolve from chaos, but there was something different about Earth. It was a young planet filled with promise, yet there was a sharp edge to it, a fierceness that the Zarathians had not anticipated. The massive ship above them sent out pulses of energy, vibrations that sent a ripple through the atmosphere. The diplomats could feel the power in those pulses, a silent warning. The humans were ready for something. They weren't waiting to make peace, they were preparing for a confrontation. As the alien ship hovered above Earth's atmosphere, a voice crackled through the communication channel. It was Earth's military, a deep, commanding voice, filled with authority and urgency. "We have detected your arrival," the voice said, cold and emotionless. "Prepare to leave Earth's orbit immediately. Failure to comply will result in consequences." The diplomats exchanged uneasy glances. This was not the welcome they had hoped for. Had humanity become so guarded that it was willing to threaten first contact? The thought seemed impossible to the Zatians. Their centuries of observation had shown them nothing but the potential for cooperation. But now, as they listened to the voice from Earth, they could hear the fear in the tone, fear of the unknown, fear of being vulnerable, and maybe, just maybe, fear of the aliens themselves. The message was clear. Earth wasn't ready for peace. Aerith knew. They couldn't back down now. The mission was too important. The stakes too high. This wasn't just about Earth's future, it was about the future of the galaxy. If the Zarathians could help guide humanity, show them the way toward peace and unity, they could become a powerful force in the universe. But if Earth chose war, if they chose to fight instead of understand, everything could change. Aerith made his decision. Maintain course, he ordered firmly. His voice was calm, steady, despite the growing chaos. In his mind, the ship continued its slow descent toward Earth, the Titan-class ship growing larger and more menacing with every passing second. The diplomats could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of the situation growing heavier with each passing moment. Human voice crackled through the air again, this time filled with even more urgency. You have been warned. Turn back now, or face the consequences. But Aerith did not flinch. He knew this was a pivotal moment in the history of the galaxy. He could feel it in his bones. This moment would shape the future of all species. That as the Zarathian ship broke through the final layers of Earth's atmosphere, they could see the ruins of the cities below. The alien diplomats had studied Earth for years. But now that they were above it, the true scale of human civilization hit them in a way they hadn't anticipated. The cities were a mix of advanced technology and decay. Some parts of Earth looked vibrant and full of life, while others seemed abandoned, as if humanity itself had faced a crisis too great to overcome. Where was humanity? Were they on the brink of collapse, or were they merely hiding from something more powerful than they realized? The mystery deepened as the Zarathians surveyed the landscape below, their sensors picking up strange readings. The planet's pulse seemed to be fluctuating, almost as if Earth itself were holding its breath. The diplomat's ship continued its descent, but now, it wasn't just the presence of the Titan-class ship that they had to worry about, it was Earth itself. The alien race, who had once believed they could solve any problem with diplomacy, now wondered, could they save Earth? Could they help humanity avoid the war that seemed to be approaching, or would Earth's fear and distrust be too great to overcome? As they approached Earth's surface, the ship's systems began to register a new anomaly, a massive surge of energy, one unlike anything they had ever seen. The diplomats could feel the hum of the ship's engines as they slowed their descent. The presence of the Titan-class ship had thrown everything into disarray, and now they were entering unknown territory. The tension was unbearable. Aerith looked out the window of the ship and saw something that sent chills down his spine. The Titan-class ship was moving toward them. Earth's military might had arrived, and it was impossible to ignore. This was no ordinary greeting. This was a challenge. With the threat of violence looming, the alien diplomats were faced with a choice: retreat and return to the stars, or face humanity's wrath head-on. The decision had been made, but the real test had just begun. As the alien diplomat's ship hovered above Earth's surface, the weight of the situation settled heavily upon them. The Titan-class ship, still looming in the sky like an unblinking eye, seemed to absorb all the light around it. Its sheer presence was intimidating, impossible to ignore. For a brief moment, the Zarathian diplomats wondered if they had made a mistake. Could they really engage with a species so powerful and, it seemed, so volatile? The haunting message from Earth echoed in their minds: stay away from Earth's orbit. Earth's peace will come at a price. Those words, spoken with such cold authority, had shaken their resolve more than they cared to admit. Inside their sleek spacecraft, the diplomats moved with practiced efficiency, trying to calm their racing hearts, but even the most seasoned of them could not hide the underlying tension. Was peace still possible, or had humanity already set itself on a path from which there was no return? Aerith, the lead diplomat, glanced around at the faces of his team. There was fear in their eyes, yes, but also something else: curiosity. Humanity was a mystery, and like any great mystery, it was irresistible. The ship descended further, and the ground below them came into sharper focus. The cities of Earth appeared much like the image they had studied from space: sprawling metropolises, interconnected by webs of roads and networks. But something was off. The cities were quieter than expected, almost eerily so. There were no signs of bustling life, no flurry of activity. The whole planet seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Aerith's brow furrowed. Where were the people? Was humanity truly prepared for a new age of peace and collaboration? Or had they retreated into isolation, scared of the very thing that had brought them to this point? The diplomat felt an unsettling tug deep within him, a feeling that Earth was not as it appeared, but it was too late to turn back now. The arrival of the Titan-class ship, along with the cryptic warning from Earth's military, had made it clear the time for diplomacy was rapidly slipping away. The diplomat team's focus shifted back to their immediate surroundings. The ship's sensors had begun to pick up strange readings. The energy signature of the Titan-class ship was unlike anything they had encountered. It was as if the ship wasn't just a machine, it was a force, almost alive. Its presence disturbed the surrounding atmosphere, causing waves of energy to ripple through the air. Every time their ship moved, it seemed to face resistance, like an invisible wall pushing back against them. Aerith turned to his chief engineer, Kara, who had been quietly monitoring the ship's systems. Her face was tense, her fingers flying across the controls, "What's happening, Kara?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. Kara looked up from her console, her eyes wide with apprehension. "The ship's systems are detecting an interference in the air, like some kind of energy field around us. It's not a natural phenomenon. Something is actively altering the atmosphere. This isn't just a ship. It's something more." The diplomat team exchanged worried glances. What kind of ship could produce an effect like that? This wasn't just about technology, it was something far more advanced, something that felt almost unnatural. The ground beneath them was becoming clearer now, but it wasn't the vibrant, welcoming landscape they had imagined. The cities appeared abandoned, the streets empty, with no sign of life. It was as if a great event had occurred, one that had forced the entire population into hiding. Aerith couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Without warning, the ship's communication systems crackled, interrupting his thoughts. A message came through, direct from Earth's military command center. The words were stark and chilling. "Zarathian ship, you are in violation of Earth space. We will not allow you to land. Turn back immediately. Any attempt to engage will be met with force." The message was clear, and it was final. The Earth was not ready for peace, not yet. The threat of force was real, and the Zarathians were now caught in the crosshairs of a species they had only begun to understand. This was not the greeting they had expected. Aerith stood frozen for a moment. The weight of the words settled heavily in his chest. But then, a sense of resolve washed over him. The Zarathians had always believed in peaceful solutions, even in the face of the most dire circumstances. They had come to Earth to offer peace, not to wage war. The Titan-class ship above them, still hovering in the sky like a silent sentinel, seemed to pulse with life. Its energy readings fluctuated wildly, as if it was preparing for something big. Aerith felt the ground beneath them tremble slightly, as if the entire planet was holding its breath. "Prepare to land," Aerith said firmly, his voice carrying an air of command. He looked to Kara. "We have to make contact. We can't back down now." The crew scrambled to execute the landing sequence. The alien ship, sleek and glowing with soft, ethereal light, descended slowly toward Earth's surface. As they neared the ground, the surrounding landscape grew clearer. The empty streets stretched out below them, a haunting reflection of a world that had once been full of life, but now seemed to stand still. The planet was filled with mystery. Something about this place didn't feel right. But it wasn't just the lack of human presence that unsettled the diplomats. The very air felt charged, as if Earth was on the brink of something major, something that could change everything. As they neared their landing site, Aerith's eyes flicked to the dark mass of the Titan-class ship. It loomed like a shadow, a silent warning that they were walking into unknown territory. The diplomats knew they were entering the lion's den now, but they also knew this was their chance. The ship's landing gear made contact with the Earth, sending a low, resonating hum through the ship. The doors began to open slowly, and the bright light of Earth's sun flooded in. The air felt different, here thick with unspoken tension. Aerith's heart raced as he stepped onto the alien soil, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. They had arrived, and they were here to stay. But the question remained, would Earth welcome them, or would they be forced to fight for their place in this new world? The first step onto Earth's surface was more than a physical one. It was a step into the unknown, and the fate of the entire galaxy could very well depend on it. The moment the diplomats' boots touched Earth's soil, a sharp, unnatural silence swept over them. The once bustling city below now felt frozen in time, as if the very air around them held its breath, watching them. The streets were eerily still, the buildings towering and silent. No signs of life, no movement, just the distant hum of machinery from the massive Titan-class ship overhead. It loomed like a dark, ominous guardian, its presence overwhelming Aerith. The lead diplomat felt a chill run down his spine. The message from Earth's military still echoed in his mind: turn back immediately. Any attempt to engage will be met with force. The Zarathians were not used to such hostility. In their long history, they had mediated countless peace treaties, offering cooperation to species that had previously fought among themselves. But this was different. Something deep within Aerith told him that Earth wasn't simply wary of the Zarathians. Earth was afraid. He raised his hand, signaling to his team. The diplomats, each one of them a master of communication and peaceful resolution, had been trained for moments like this. They could handle fear, mistrust, and even anger. But this was something entirely new. The atmosphere felt thick with uncertainty, and the once confident diplomats now felt the weight of their mission bearing down on them. The first few steps onto Earth's soil were slow, cautious. Each diplomat seemed to be taking in every detail, the dust swirling around their feet, the faint sound of distant machinery, the way the sunlight seemed to dim under the shadow of the Titan-class ship. The ground beneath them was unlike anything they had encountered in their travels. It wasn't the soft, lush soil of peaceful planets they had visited before. It was rough, hardened, as if Earth had endured hardship beyond their understanding. That as they made their way toward a nearby structure, a giant, imposing building, once a hub of human activity, the silence was broken only by the low hum of the Zarathian ship's engines still hovering above. It was a strange contrast to the silence of the planet below. The building, grand and towering, looked as though it had once been filled with life. Now it was a hollow shell, its windows shattered, its walls cracked and crumbling. It was a city in decay, a world that had somehow failed to keep up with its own ambitions. Aerith's gaze scanned the empty streets, his thoughts racing. What had happened to Earth? The Zarathians had studied human history, seen their rapid advancements in technology, their wars, their victories, their triumphs, and their mistakes. But they had never expected this, a planet so full of promise, now so devoid of life. Had Earth really become so isolated, so fearful, that they had abandoned their own cities? The whispers of his crew carried through the air, soft and uncertain. They too felt the weight of the silence pressing down on them. They were surrounded by empty streets, empty buildings, and a sky that felt too big, too lonely. The planet felt abandoned, as though it had given up on itself. And yet, above them, the Titan-class ship watched, its massive form dwarfing the Diplomats' craft, and casting an intimidating shadow across the ruins. Aerith paused for a moment, taking in the vastness of the landscape. It wasn't just the emptiness. That unsettled Hemet was the feeling that something was wrong, deeply wrong. Earth had been a beacon of life, full of growth and change. Yet now, it felt as if a great storm had passed, and the remnants of civilization lay scattered like debris, forgotten and left to rot. Suddenly, a strange sound broke the silence, a low, resonant hum emanating from deep within the Titan-class ship. The ground trembled slightly, as though the very earth beneath their feet was alive. Reacting to the presence of the massive ship, the Diplomats instinctively turned their eyes to the sky, where the Titan-class ship remained suspended, towering over them like a silent judge. It was almost as if the ship itself was waiting for something, for the Zarathians to make the first move, or perhaps for Earth itself to speak. What do we do now? Kara, the chief engineer, asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. She had always been the practical one, the one who had always believed that technology would provide the answers. But even she couldn't deny that the situation was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Aerith stood still for a moment, his gaze unwavering. He knew the stakes. The Diplomats had come to establish peace, to offer cooperation. But now, with the Titan-class ship looming overhead, and the eerie silence of Earth pressing in on them, he realized that their mission had taken a turn. This wasn't just about peaceful dialogue anymore. This was a test of wills, a moment that would determine the future of both Earth and the Zarathians. We move forward, Aerith said, his voice steady, but his heart pounding in his chest. We came here to offer peace, and we will do so, no matter the cost. The Diplomats continued walking, their eyes trained on the towering building ahead. As they moved, the air seemed to grow thicker, more oppressive, as if the very atmosphere was rejecting them. There was no welcoming gesture from Earth, no sign of any living being, no open doors, no handshakes, just the echo of their footsteps on the cracked pavement. Finally, they reached the base of the building. Aerith raised his hand, signaling for the group to stop. He turned toward Kara, who was scanning the structure with her device. We need to make contact, he said, his voice firm. If Earth is hiding from us, we must find out why. Only then can we begin to understand what is truly happening here. The silence around them deepened as Kara moved forward to the building's entrance. As her fingers brushed against the rusted door, a low cracking sound echoed through the air. The Diplomats exchanged worried glances. What was waiting for them inside? Had Earth already made up its mind about the Zarathians, or was there something far more sinister at play here? The door creaked open, revealing an empty lobby, its floor covered in dust, its walls adorned with strange, faded symbols. The building had once been the heart of human civilization on this world, but now it seemed like a tomb, a hollow reminder of what had once been. The Zarathian Diplomats stood at the threshold, unsure of what they would find within, and yet, as Aerith stepped forward, he could feel its weight of history pressing down on them. This was it, the moment where everything would change. The door creaked open slowly, its rusted hinges protesting against the quiet tension that hung in the air. Inside, The dim light filtered through shattered windows, casting jagged shadows on the floor. The building, once a symbol of human achievement, now stood as a ghost of its former self. Dust danced in the beams of light, swirling like the memories of a time long past. The diplomats stepped forward, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence, their senses heightened with every cautious movement. Aerith, the lead diplomat, took a slow, deliberate breath. The stillness inside the building felt unnatural, oppressive. His hand hovered near his communicator, as though the silence itself might speak through it. Outside, the Titan-class ship loomed larger and larger, a giant shadow in the sky. But it wasn't just the ship that weighed heavily on his mind. Earth itself felt like it was holding its breath, its future, its decisions, all hanging in the balance. As they moved deeper into the building, the walls seemed to close in, their smooth, polished surfaces now cracked and decaying. It was as if the world had paused, frozen in a moment of uncertainty, unable to move forward. The once vibrant hallways were now darkened, the air thick with the scent of forgotten years. Aerith's mind raced as he examined the faded symbols. On the walls, human designs that spoke of a past now nearly forgotten. What had happened to this world? Why had humanity, this species of incredible potential, allowed itself to fall so far? It's all gone, Kara, the chief engineer, whispered, her voice trembling slightly. She was scanning the area with her device, her brow furrowed in confusion. The systems are completely offline, there's no sign of life anywhere. Not even a single signal from Earth's core. Aerith turned toward her, his face grave. Could this be some kind of abandonment? He mused, aloud. Has Earth's civilization truly collapsed? Or is there something more to this silence? There was a heavy pause as the words settled between them. It was as if the very building was refusing to answer. The diplomats exchanged uneasy glances, each one feeling the weight of the mystery closing in around them. They had come to offer peace, but it was becoming increasingly clear that peace wasn't what Earth was seeking. The Titan-class ship overhead, a hulking mass of raw power, seemed to reflect that Earth wasn't prepared for peace. Earth was preparing for something far darker. Suddenly, the silence was broken not by a voice, but by a sound deep within. The structure, a low hum, almost imperceptibly, it vibrated through the ground beneath their feet. It wasn't coming from the Titan-class ship above. No, this hum seemed to resonate from within the building itself. Aerith froze, his senses straining. It was as though the hum was beckoning them, pulling them deeper into the heart of the abandoned structure. Something was stirring, something alive. He raised his hand to signal for the diplomats to hold their ground, but the hum grew louder, clearer. It was no longer just a vibration, it was a sound, deep and reverberating, as though the building itself was speaking to them. The walls began to glow faintly, faint lines of blue light tracing patterns that were both ancient and unfamiliar. Aerith's heart skipped a beat as he stepped forward, drawn to the eerie glow. The others followed, moving with a mix of caution and curiosity. The further they ventured, the stronger the hum became. It seemed to pulse, beating in time with their hearts, as if the building were alive and aware of their presence. And then, at the far end of the hallway, they saw it. A massive door, unlike any they had seen before. It was made of a metal that shimmered with an unnatural light, its surface smooth and seamless. Above it, glowing symbols danced in the air, shifting and changing, as though the door itself was a living entity, responding to their approach. Aerith felt the pull of the door, a magnetic force that seemed to guide him. He knew this was the key to understanding Earth's silence, to understanding why everything felt so wrong. He took a step closer, and the door opened before him, the soft, worry sound of ancient machinery filling the air. The room beyond was vast, stretching far beyond the limits of the building. The walls were lined with advanced technology, far beyond anything the Zorathians had encountered in their travels. It was a strange blend of human design and something more, something alien, something ancient. In the center of the room, a massive machine stood. It was not like anything the diplomats had seen before. It hummed with energy, glowing softly, its purpose unclear. Aerith stepped closer, feeling a surge of electricity in the air. Was this the source of the hum? The machine seemed to pulse in response to his presence, as though it were aware of him, aware of all of them. Kara moved to the console, her fingers skimming over the surface of the machine. This isn't human, she murmured, her voice filled with awe. This technology, it's far beyond anything Earth could have created. Aerith stepped closer, his breath catching in his throat. Then whose technology is this? He whispered, barely able to believe what he was seeing. The machine was ancient, its design so foreign that they felt out of place in the human world. The question hung in the air, unanswered and full of weight. Who had left this behind, and why? Suddenly, the hum grew louder, and the ground beneath them trembled. The machine came to life, its lights flashing brighter, its hum intensifying. A deep, rumbling sound filled the room as though something was awakening deep within the core of the machine. It was alive, and whatever it was about to make its presence known. The air grew thick with anticipation. Aerith turned to his team, his mind racing. What was this? What had they stumbled upon? Had Earth's silence been part of something larger? Had the Titan-class ship not been humanity's might, but a shield guarding something that had been buried for ages? Something far older, more dangerous than anything the Diplomats could comprehend. The hum reached its peak. The machine shuddered, and then everything went dark. The glowing symbols faded, the hum stopped, and the room fell into an unnatural silence. It was as if the building itself was holding its breath once more. The Diplomats stood in the darkness, staring at each other, unsure of what had just occurred. Had they triggered something? Or had something triggered them? Outside, the Titan-class ship hovered silently, its dark silhouette looming over the city. The fate of Earth, the fate of the Zarathians, and perhaps even the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The silence that followed the machine's sudden deactivation was deafening. The Diplomats stood motionless, their senses heightened, unsure of what they had just witnessed. The room, once filled with the humming energy of the machine, now felt oppressively quiet, as if the walls themselves were waiting. Aerith's heart pounded in his chest, and for the first time since they had arrived, he felt a flicker of fear. What had they awakened, and more importantly, what had it meant for Earth? His mind raced as he turned back toward the strange, glowing door behind them. His crew gathered anxiously around him. Kara, the chief engineer, was the first to speak. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, her voice filled with both awe and confusion. "The technology here, it's not human. It's like nothing we've seen. What kind of power does this machine hold?" Aerith nodded, his gaze still fixed on the now-still device. He could feel the hum that had once resonated within the building still echoing faintly in the back of his mind. The energy felt like it was waiting for something, waiting for them, or perhaps waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Was Earth's silence tied to this machine? Was it the cause of the planet's apparent desolation? The sudden hum of the Titan-class ship overhead broke his thoughts. He felt the vibrations of its massive engines reverberate through the ground, and it was clear as fate was no longer just about diplomacy. The warship was a reminder of what awaited if the Zarathians failed. Yet, what if Earth's silence and fear weren't just about the humans' own struggle, but about something they had found, something they didn't fully understand? "We need to make contact now," Aerith said, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. There was no more time to waste. They had to understand what had happened to Earth. The Titan-class ship wasn't just a symbol of Earth's military strength, it was also a marker of their isolation, their desperate desire to protect themselves from the unknown. And the Zarathians, for all their peacekeeping abilities, had just stumbled upon that very unknown. The Diplomats moved cautiously through the dimly lit halls of the building, back toward the entryway. The weight of the unanswered questions seemed to press down on them with each step. What had driven humanity to build a machine so advanced, so unlike anything they had ever seen? Were the humans hiding something from the galaxy, or had something larger, something more ancient, been at play? Outside, the sky above was shifting, a strange, unnatural glow spreading from the direction of the Titan-class ship. It wasn't like anything they had seen before. Was the ship preparing to engage? Or was it waiting for the Zarathians to make a choice, one that could determine the future of Earth itself? As Aerith and his team emerged from the building, they looked up to find the Titan-class ship descending slowly, its massive bulk cutting through the clouds like a shadow. It was an imposing sight, its energy fields radiating outward, casting an eerie light on the ruined streets below. But it wasn't just the ship that filled the Diplomats with a growing sense of dread. It was the atmosphere itself, thick with tension, like the calm before a storm. The Titan-class ship had arrived, and it was clear Earth had chosen its course. It was no longer about diplomacy or peaceful negotiations. Earth was preparing for a fight. But why? What had caused this drastic shift? What had happened to humanity in the years since the Zarathians had first observed them? The answer, Aerith realized, could lie within the strange machine they had found, buried beneath the human city. Was it some kind of weapon, or perhaps a beacon, a signal from an even greater, more powerful force beyond Earth's understanding? As he stared up at the giant vessel above them, he knew they were no longer simply dealing with a planet trying to make contact with the galactic community. They were facing a force that was trying to protect itself from something far more dangerous. A loud mechanical thrum filled the air as the Titan-class ship's engines powered up, its massive silhouette casting a shadow across the city. The Diplomats' ship, small and sleek compared to the imposing warship, seemed insignificant in comparison. But it wasn't just the size of the Titan-class ship that concerned. It was its purpose. The ship wasn't here for peace. It was here to defend Earth from an unknown threat. A threat that the humans had clearly been preparing for long before the Zarathians had arrived. What are they protecting? Kara whispered, more to herself than anyone else, as she stared up at the ship, the fear evident in her eyes. Aerith shook his head. I don't know, he murmured, his mind racing. But we can't leave without answers. The Titan-class ship began to descend more rapidly, and the ground beneath the Diplomats' feet began to rumble. A feeling of immense power radiated from the ship, so intense that it seemed to distort the very air around them. Aerith could see the military personnel aboard the ship moving into position. The humans were ready for something, but what? Aerith and his team moved quickly, knowing that their time was running out. They had to make contact with the humans now. Whatever was hidden beneath Earth's surface, whatever ancient power lay dormant within the strange machine they had discovered, had to be understood before it was too late. Earth's true intentions had yet to be revealed. With each step they took toward the waiting Titan-class ship, Aerith's mind became clearer. The Zarathians had always prided themselves on their ability to negotiate, to find peaceful solutions in the face of conflict. But this was different. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. There was something far more dangerous at play, and they had just begun to unravel the mystery. Prepare yourselves, Aerith said to his team, his voice low but firm. We are about to face Earth's greatest secret, and I don't think they're going to want to share it with us. As they approached the towering ship, Aerith could feel the air grow heavier, charged with the impending confrontation. Whatever came next would decide the fate of both Earth and the Zarathians, and perhaps the future of the entire galaxy. The Titan-class ship loomed over them, its massive form blocking out the sky. Aerith and his team stood frozen for a moment, eyes locked on the giant vessel that now dominated the horizon. The hum of its engines resonated in their bones, sending vibrations through the air that felt more like a warning than the mere pulse of machinery. Earth's greatest weapon, a symbol of humanity's resilience, now stood before them. But there was something more to it, something Aerith couldn't quite place. It wasn't just the size, or the power that radiated from the ship, it was the weight of secrecy. Humanity had made a choice, and the Zarathians were now standing at the crossroads of that decision. There was no going back, not now. They had come to offer peace, to build a bridge between their worlds. But the warship in front of them was a stark reminder that Earth didn't need peace. Earth needed protection. Aerith turned to his crew, his face set with determination. We're not here to fight, he said, his voice calm but filled with the gravity of the situation. We came for answers, and we're going to get them. There's more to Earth's sphere than just the ship above us. We need to understand what's hidden here. As they walked forward, the ground beneath their feet vibrated more intensely. The Titan-class ship's engines were at full power, and it was clear now this was not a welcoming presence. It was an obstacle. The Diplomats approached the landing area, an open space just beneath the shadow of the great ship. Earth's military personnel were already in position, their eyes trained on the alien group as they made their way forward. They were armed, of course, ready for anything, their stances rigid and defensive, but Aerith could see something else. In their eyes, uncertainty. Humanity was not used to facing threats from the stars. The Titan-class ship was their answer to the unknown, to whatever force had led them down this path. But the Zarathians knew this. No weapon, no matter how powerful, could protect Earth from the most dangerous threat of all, the unknown within themselves. The Diplomats stopped a few paces away from the line of military soldiers. The tension in the air was thick, and for the first time since they had arrived, Aerith felt the full weight of the uncertainty that gripped Earth. Humanity had been on a dangerous path long before the Zarathians had come into the picture. Now, it seemed that path had led them to a place where even they couldn't predict what would happen next. One of the human officers, a tall man with sharp eyes and a tight expression, stepped forward. His uniform was a blend of modern technology and ancient military pride, the insignia of Earth's defense forces emblazoned across his chest. He regarded Aerith and his team with a cold gaze. I assume you are the Diplomats from the stars, the officer said, his voice flat, his tone clipped. I should warn you we are not in the mood for discussions. Aerith met the officer's gaze without flinching. Then we will make it simple, he said, his voice unwavering. We didn't come here to negotiate weapons or power. We came to understand. The officer's eyes narrowed, and for a moment Aerith thought he saw something shift behind him, a flicker of fear maybe, or a deeper unspoken pain. But the moment passed, and the officer nodded sharply. Then follow me, he said, his tone softening just enough to let the diplomats know that the real conversation was about to begin. The group was escorted toward the entrance of the Titan ship, the soldiers surrounding them as they moved. The colossal warship's doors opened with a heavy, grinding noise, and they were led inside. The interior was nothing like the Zarathians had expected. It wasn't filled with military technology or weapons. It was strangely sterile, almost clinical. The walls hummed with power, and the air felt thick with a kind of latent energy, as though the very structure of the ship had been built to contain something far more dangerous than the warriors aboard. They were led to a large circular room. In the heart of the ship, at the center, stood a massive console, pulsing with a strange, unnatural light. The officer gestured toward it, and Aerith approached, sensing the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This, it seemed, was where the answers lay. What is this? Aerith asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The officer hesitated for a moment, then spoke, his voice low and almost regretful. This is the heart of Earth's defense. The machine you found, it's a part of this. It was built to protect us from something we didn't understand, something that lies far beyond Earth. We've been preparing for this moment for years. We've been hiding from the truth of what we really are. Aerith's heart skipped a beat. What was this? What had Earth uncovered, and why had they hidden it from the galaxy? What was it that the Titan-class ship, this enormous vessel of human power, was guarding against? The officer took a deep breath, as if preparing himself for what he was about to say. The machine you found was built to protect Earth from the invaders, he said, the word hanging heavily in the air. We thought they were just myths, stories passed down through the generations, but they're real, and they're coming. Aerith stood frozen, the weight of the revelation crashing over him. The invaders. He had heard whispers of them before, vague rumors of an ancient race that had once threatened the galaxy, but they had been relegated to the realm of myth. And now, it seemed, they were very real, and Earth was the last line of defense. What do you mean they're coming? Aerith asked, his voice filled with disbelief. How can you be sure? The officer looked at him with haunted eyes. We've been tracking them. Their signals have already reached Earth's orbit. We thought we had time, but now they're closer than ever. And when they arrive, nothing will be able to stop them. A heavy silence fell over the room. The diplomats exchanged glances, their minds struggling to process the information. Earth's silence, the Titan-class ship, the machine beneath the city, it was all connected. The officer stepped back, his hands shaking slightly. We weren't ready for peace with the stars because we've been preparing for war with something far worse, and now, you know the truth. Aerith felt a pang of realization, his thoughts racing. Earth wasn't just hiding from the galaxy. They had been hiding from something far more terrifying, something that would threaten the entire universe. And in that moment, the future of both Earth and the Zarathians was no longer in their hands. The invaders were coming, and the battle for survival would be unlike anything either side had ever imagined.